episode 2 of Talkin TI with Mo and Chris.
Hi, guys.
Thank you for tuning in once again. Before we jump in, and we're going to jump in real quick, just wanted to say thanks for everybody who checked out episode 1. If you haven't done so, go back, watch it. I think you can subscribe to our channel now.
Yep.
But we're really, really happy for all the enthusiasm and the feedback, and keep it coming. Because we're going to keep these episodes coming. So, Mo, why don't you tell us about what we're going to discuss today?
Well, our topic of discussion today is in regards to the Prophecy of Kings expansion. So just as a way of background, when Chris and I started playing, when Chris invited me to this wonderful group of people that play TI very often, I had only played TI for once or twice, and I had the game. But it was one of those things that was sitting at the top. You know how it is. A lot of you have this problem where you have the game and you just don't have a group of friends that are willing to sit down for 6 hours to play TI4. So I had played it once or twice, and then he invited me to this wonderful group of people, and we started playing TI. But we played, the game was Prophecy of Kings. And that was the first time I played Prophecy of Kings, was with this group. And not gonna lie, I was overwhelmed. There was a lot of stuff going on from the vanilla version of the game. Now, fast forward to today, we've been playing a lot of POK. We're having a great time with it. There is a debate recently as to whether the Prophecy of Kings expansion is a great addition to the game or not. This came about recently as a result of one of my favorite game review channels, Shut Up and Sit Down, made a review of Prophecy of Kings. It wasn't, in my opinion, one of the most flattering reviews. And we've been playing with Tim, who also prefers vanilla and has been trying to get us to play a vanilla game. So we decided we'd make this episode about the difference between POK and vanilla, and what we're going to do, Chris, is why don't you tell?
Thematically, we're here to discuss, I guess, the pros and cons of vanilla gaming versus Prophecy of the Kings. Obviously, both Mo and I have strong opinions on Prophecy of the Kings. We love it.
We love it.
But we do know that there are other people we play with who generally don't like the Prophecy of the Kings editions and prefer maybe a simpler, more streamlined vanilla game. And I told Mo, we're not going to beat up on those people. We completely understand their preferences. So we really just thought we would just have a discussion about the pros and cons of each, why we like Prophecy of the Kings, and then maybe some of the vanilla people are right, maybe why they're wrong. And we're also going to have our friend Tim, who we play Twilight Imperium with, on in a little bit, just to discuss his take on why he wanted to play a vanilla game. And just to give you an idea, we're going to play a vanilla game with Tim in a little bit, and then we'll have another follow-up, which will comment on our experience.
That's right. And just to be fair, I mean, the thing is, we have been playing Prophecy of Kings, so we figured the best way to really kind of talk about this is to actually play a vanilla game. And we're gonna play a really wonderful vanilla game with a great group of friends. We're gonna have a lot of fun because we love TI regardless of whether it's POK or vanilla. But then we want to come back and sort of say, okay, well, what did we like? What didn't we like? Just like we do with our normal sort of, like we did with our last episode, except this is going to be more along the lines of discussing the various pros and cons of what POK, what Prophecy of Kings brings to the table. And with that being said, right off the bat, I'm going to say I decided I'm going to play the Barony. The Barony is known for having a really terrible hero, apparently, in POK. We'll talk about that later. I don't really want to go into strategies necessarily. I would rather sort of stick to vanilla versus POK. But that being said, I'm going to play the Barony of Letnev is very in a vanilla game, and I'm excited to see sort of how that goes without any of the POK goodies that get added.
No, I'm gonna play Soul, and full disclosure, we played a game recently, and I was Soul with Prophecy of Kings add-ons, so the hero, the agent, the mech. So I'm just gonna play vanilla Soul, and really see how they do without a lot of the additional stuff that Prophecy of Kings brings to the game. I'm also picking Soul because I do think they're one of the stronger factions in the original base vanilla game. I don't think they're as strong, having just played them in Prophecy of the Kings. I feel like they weren't bumped as much as a lot of the other factions, and I also feel like an infantry faction in Prophecy of the Kings isn't as strong. Now, there's a big question if it was ever strong in the original game, but I feel like they were a lot stronger whenever I played them in the original game. So really, this is going to be, for me, a comparison of kind of the two in the different game styles.
Even though you did pretty well, as you were trying to, you kept adding those points. That was a fun game.
That was a great game.
We didn't really get a chance to talk about
I
that
know,
game.
I know. But as an aside, I did the Soul go for Mechatol. Just sit
on the Mechatol, man.
Sit on Mechatol.
He sat on Mechatol, and everybody. And the thing is, everybody looked and we go, "Oh, that's weird." And at one point, we had a new player, Shane, who was the only one who somehow researched the X-89 bacterial weapon, and everyone was like, "Shane, you're our only hope for Mechatol because there's way too much on there." So they were trying to convince him to attack Chris so that he, take the stranglehold off Mechatol. But I think you held Mechatol the entire time.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, technically, I retreated because Josh wanted it, but that was only because I didn't want to roll dice for. I think I had 10 infantry and 3 mechs, and I said, I just said it was the last round, and I said, Josh, if you can take it, because he had Imperial, I said, just get the point and see what you can do.
At that point, but you had held on to it for how many rounds? Was that like 5?
It was 4. It was at least 4 rounds.
At least 4 rounds.
But and this is the thing with that game was I ended up getting Mechatol and holding it, but I couldn't really do anything else in the game. So I got to 7 points real quick because I kept hitting. Just nobody else wanted Imperial, so I would take Imperial and get a point, but I never really had any.
You couldn't get any of the other objectives.
Right, I was really strapped because wasn't. All the resources were going to Mechatol. Probably, and in retrospect, I probably put a lot too many on there. But I kept orbital dropping stuff. I kept building stuff on Mechatol, and it really was this huge, just mass of troops. But there were some get some influence, get resources, and I was stretched thin on all that other stuff. So ultimately, I got to 7 points. Just through sheer luck of having Imperial a lot, but then once everybody started, the end game started. Mm-hmm. I lost my pick of Imperial, and it became then I was kind of dead in the water. But it was a very fun game.
Do you have any strategies going into this vanilla game we've got?
I do like Soul, but I do feel they are one strategy, which is take Mechatol early and often. We shall see. I think, as I said in the last podcast, we were talking about Joel Nar, is you go into a TI game with a strategy, and then you get an objective which says upgrade 2 units, and you're like, well, there goes that. This is what I'm doing now. Yeah. So we're gonna have to see how it plays out. It's also a 4-player game, which I'm very curious to see how that'll
be interesting.
Kind of breaks out.
Yeah, that'll be interesting. Better than 5. 5-player games tend to be rough.
Sometimes I like the roughness of it.
I mean, it's enjoyable rough.
Yeah.
But I mean, and actually, I'm on the Twilight Imperium Global Facebook group, and I think at one point I posted about a 5-player game, and I was like, oh man, that's rough. It's a rough game, and we've played 5 players. Our most recent game was 7. Yeah. But so actually, Chris, while we're looking at the next game, what do you think? What are you going to miss about we got to go into this trying to be as objective as possible. But let's put it out here. Right. Let's talk about what we're going to miss in this game. I
mean, I can tell you I'm going to miss my agents. I'm going to miss, my I'm going to wonder if exploration has in my mind in Prophecy of the Kings, it kind of speeds up the early rounds. So I'm going to see I want to see how the round 1 and round 2 play out without exploration.
Yeah. So you're gonna miss exploration, or you're gonna miss the agents?
Well, I'm definitely gonna miss that's my number one. I'm gonna miss. I want to see what happens with exploration.
Okay.
I think it's a really good addition to the game. So I'm just curious as to see if vanilla is how the difference plays out.
Okay.
How about you? What do you?
Okay, so the biggest thing is, and I'm gonna miss the races, the factions, the new factions. I know they say, well, you can take some parts of Prophecy of Kings and put them in TI4 and not deal with all the other. I don't think that's a good idea, and we'll actually we'll discuss that in probably the second half, where we talk about the thing about the all or nothing aspect of POK. But I'm definitely going to miss the factions. I've been trying to play the Nazroja, which I'm not going to be able to play this game because they're not in Prophecy of Kings. So definitely the factions. The planet exploration is awesome. I think it gives flavor. I will miss. I think I'll miss the mechs, honestly. And even though, like my last game when I played the extra, I had no mechs.
Yeah.
I don't think. Maybe I had one mech, so I didn't really use the mechs. But I do love the idea of having a ground troop that has an ability, because it does sort of differentiate the factions a little bit more, gives a little bit more of an edge. Also, mechs are cool.
Yeah, hey, I was dropping them every turn everywhere.
Yeah. And definitely the agents. Like the agents, that just goes without saying. I mean, in my opinion, that is a level of depth to the game that is just frankly kind of gives more depth and flavor to the factions. But yeah, definitely the factions.
Yeah.
Number one, I'm gonna miss being able to play any one of those factions. So
yeah, and I am curious as the end game of Vanilla versus Prophecy of the Kings. Because I will say I do sympathize and understand with people who prefer vanilla because they say at least I've heard the game's too swingy. And you're
that's part of the point. That's part of the point, though. And I promise viewers who are watching, I promise you that when we go into this vanilla game, I am going to keep a completely open mind.
Right.
I'm gonna have fun. I'm gonna enjoy it. I'm not gonna go in going, oh, this sucks. I won't. But honestly, in my opinion, the variety, the big swing, the crazy hero abilities, in my opinion, that makes TI more fun because it is a game of variable powers, right? And you for our last episode, and I realized that I got I was robbed or whatever because the what was it, the Chronoman video was not actually in POK, was supposed to be taken out. But that being said, I didn't mind it. All right, I didn't mind that Josh had a hero as the extra who was able to do this crazy thing. I just by luck of the draw, I played extra last game. I used that hero ability, and it was not the most effective thing. It was fun. I enjoyed it.
You destroyed my fleet.
I did. It was awesome. I had two.
Not that it mattered for Soul.
I had two laws that allowed me to alter the number of fleet tokens, and I used them both quite effectively. So I was able to in some cases, get people to remove 2 fleet tokens off their sheet, which ships just blew up. Yeah. And it was awesome. But that being said, it didn't help me much.
Well, I think it helped you in the sense that it was another protection that if anybody was going to make a final play, their fleet was reduced. You still would have won. But just back to my point, I think the one thing that I'm going to try to pay attention to is the swinginess of it. Yeah. Because I don't want to put words in anybody's mouth, but I feel like people with the vanilla game approach it as just a strategy game, more of a chess game, where you know the rules, kind of the parameters. What people
can do.
Right. And then I do understand, I am sympathetic to Prophecy of the Kings. They kind of chuck in a lot of, you have to know all the exploration deck, and you have to know what everybody's heroes and agents do. I don't necessarily buy that, but I want to give a little sympathy and a little credence to it that maybe a vanilla game would be a little more strategic. In the sense that I know where my command tokens are going to go.
But wouldn't you? Is there an argument to be made that you play Prophecy of Kings enough, and it ends up being just like that chess aspect, where know when you're playing the other factions, you know what their agents and heroes can do, and so on and so forth. If anything, it makes the nuance of alliances even better, because certain alliances kind of play off of each other even better.
Yes.
And being able to use another person's commander or what have you. So my argument is that yes, vanilla is definitely as a chess game everybody knows what they can and can't do, is easier, but that's not to say that if you play Prophecy of Kings enough and love it, that you can't sort of go into a game and kind of know what other players can do in addition to what you can do and play it out. What,
No,
what do you think about that?
I agree. But I also have to acknowledge that not everybody sits on the Twilight Imperium wiki and looks up Soul and looks up, what Carrier 2 does and what the Codex
we're TI
what
nerds.
what the Omega is like.
So, yeah.
Oh, you have new Stymie. Well, the old Stymie does this, and you can play this. And
I
think
that's a fair
I
point.
think one of our games, Jonathan was trying to explain to a new player why the old Omega for, I think, what was it? One of the Omegas was better for this faction rather than the
that's
other.
right.
And it was this long heated discussion, and I was like, most people don't care.
It was about the I think it was about the Megan
Defense Grid. Yes,
he was talking about the Omega version of it was better. No, not as good
for Arborek.
For Arborek.
Yes.
And it was like,
it was like, really, nobody's going to get that anyway. So I do have to acknowledge that I do think if I think the kind of one of the final points I'll make is I think if you are someone who just likes to get out a game of Twilight Imperium and play with your friends once or twice a year, and just to bring it full circle to the sit down, shut up review, I think that's what it was aimed at, and I do agree with that if you're just going to get it, play it with friends, you know the rules enough. I think the vanilla game is amazing and great, and it's all and it's also what you're comfortable with. Whereas if you're like us and you're jonesing for the next game, you're like, I gotta use my agent.
Yeah.
Prophecy of the Kings just blows the doors off.
Yeah. And we were talking about this before we recorded the show and or before we started recording, and I think I really respect Shut Up and Sit Down. I love their reviews. Huge fan. So no shade on them. But I think the only thing is I did not appreciate the fact that they kind of mentioned this, and you said it. Mm-hmm. They mentioned that, hey, look, if you're somebody who loves TI and you already own Prophecy of Kings, this review is not for you. So they did say that. Mm-hmm. But I also think that they did that. They kind of treated POK in a backhanded way, which is that's what you said, and I agree. In that they didn't say, well, if you love it, it's a great expansion and have fun. It was more like, if you love it, you already have it. But now let's go ahead and talk about why we think it's not a good expansion. And that that's I tried to rewatch it. I actually tried to rewatch it prior to our recording here, just to sort of and I was cringing. I couldn't finish it. It was upsetting me. It was like somebody was talking badly about my baby. I was like, don't you can't treat POK that way. I love this game, right? So I really tried to rewatch that review, and whereas Quinn's initial review of TI4, I'm not gonna lie, I watched that video like 4 or 5 times. It's just so good. So anyway, that's
they've got enough heat on that, I think, to power a war son.
That's pretty good.
So anyway, puns aside, we're gonna play a game shortly of vanilla Twilight Imperium. And then we'll check back here after we play, and we'll give thoughts, kind of recap, and I'm sure we'll have a lot more to say about Prophecy of the Kings, vanilla games, and more, just how awesome everything is.
Yes, this will probably be a post-heavy sort of episode. Where we're gonna sort of really break down the nuances of the differences and hopefully have some good insight for people who either have had that debate or whatever. We're gonna sort of go about it via the scientific method.
Yes, absolutely. All right, guys.
All right.
We'll see you soon.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Bye.
Welcome back, everyone. We are here now to conclude the second half of our vanilla versus POK topic.
Yes.
But now we're armed with the knowledge of what happens after you play a vanilla game when all we've been doing is playing Prophecy of Kings games this whole time.
Yes.
Chris, I would like you to take this one off because I believe that Chris took ownership of this last game quite strongly.
Yeah, I will say it like everything with Twilight Imperium, you go into something expecting what to play or to feel one way, and you come out on the other side of the game. Everything's completely different. It was a very, very interesting game in the sense that when Tim showed the map to everybody that we were going to be playing, he made a custom map. I immediately looked at it and said, well, I'm just going to play Soul and I'm just going to turtle the whole time. And that's going to be my game. And it's just going to be a straight up me just basically creating a defense perimeter around my homeworld. Turns out the game was completely the opposite. At some point, Mo actually was in the lead with 5 points. I looked at that and I said, that's not going to stand. So I ended up mobilizing.
This aggression will not stand, man.
So
Chris literally looked at the score tracker. Everybody had 1 point, and I had 5.
Yeah.
And Chris was like, "Nah, that does not happen. We're not doing this."
Right. No, I was like, no, Mo can't win another game for being the nice guy.
And I was planning on playing a peaceful game, but this map was incredibly tight.
Yes.
I mean, you know, as soon as you take over systems, it was like they're your neighbors. You know, it was like one of those you could make neighbors in round one.
Right. So yeah, Tim and I got into it a little bit in the beginning,
and I capitalized on that.
Yeah, everybody. I think everybody. Kia and you were like, well, they're just going to duke it out.
Yes.
So at one point, I turned to Tim, and this was, and I said, I don't care if I win, but Mo's not going to win.
Chris very much took the game by the horns diplomatically and drew the lines. Now, I do want to talk about the game.
Yes.
But before we talk about the game, I think we came away incredibly enlightened, I guess is a strong word maybe, but we came away enlightened by what the vanilla TI4 experience was like compared to Prophecy of Kings. So I do want to talk about that a little bit before we even, and I do want to go back to the game because I think some interesting things happen there. But one of the things that we were expecting to go into with no any kind of preconceived notions, we were going to see it for what it is. But honestly speaking, and I will say this, I don't know about Chris, I did not expect to enjoy it.
No.
I expected to be the entire time, missing my agent, missing the planet exploration, missing Max. And I said, but I'm going to enjoy it. I'm just going to, it'll be just a simplified game, and it's going to be nice and simple and easy. And I'm probably just going to want to go back to POK. I want to start off by saying that I feel like I either just to myself, but maybe to the audience, Matt Lees of Shut Up and Sit Down an apology, because he was onto something. There is something to be said about vanilla being a different kind of experience than POK. Now, that being said, I want to talk about this, but I loved both. I love both. I love POK. But I also discovered that there are some merits to playing a vanilla game. And since I've been talking for a while, Chris, I want to hear what you think, actually.
I think Mo kind of hit it on the head. That both of us and everybody who played came away with really a deep, deep appreciation for the vanilla game. Yeah. And I do think there is, and I never thought I would say this, but I really do think there is a deep strategic component to the original Twilight Imperium, and that's what makes it endearing to a lot of people. And like Mo, I thought that we would both be sitting here saying, well, vanilla's okay, but Prophecy of the Kings is where it's at. Yeah. I still feel that way, so I have not given up on Prophecy of the Kings, and I still think it is a better game. But we had a really, really good time playing just a straight up down the pipe vanilla game. Yeah. And I really, really did understand the criticisms of Prophecy of the Kings. I really did understand what makes the vanilla game so endearing to people. Yeah. And I really just came away with it that, you could sit down for an evening, have a really, really fun game of just vanilla TI, and that like we did, and that would be it. I still did miss my agents.
So before we talk about what we missed, because we beat that topic in the first half of this podcast, but for the second half, I want to talk about what worked vanilla. What did you like? that you know
it
that
was
POK would have ruined?
Yeah, it was a more strategic game.
Yeah.
You went in with because you had fewer options.
Yes.
You really focused on what you could do. I was playing Soul, so you really started concentrating on planets. I think a lot of the pieces mattered more. Resources mattered just a little bit more because you couldn't nab them from exploration or other sources. Infantry mattered a lot more. I really did miss orbital dropping mechs, but when I ended up putting 3 or 4 infantry on a planet, it meant something. It meant that somebody would have to come along and actually deal with them. Whereas I find with Prophecy of the Kings, it's not that infantry doesn't matter. It's just there's a lot more ways to deal with it, and you have mechs, and you have more stuff. So the streamline aspect of it meant that each piece of plastic counted a lot more.
And I want to spring off that point, Chris, in that what you mentioned about with POK. POK does give you a lot more options. Obviously, 4 different, 3 agents and a mech, right? And each agent, or the hero, the agent, the commander, they all have different abilities, so they give you more things you can do. And with vanilla, because you didn't have those, it was a lot more streamlined, more strategic. There was less variability. Now, I personally do like the variable aspect. I like the theme aspect of it, and I do want to talk about that a little bit later. But the one thing about having a pure vanilla game is that it really was honestly you playing the people more than the board.
Yes.
With Prophecy of Kings, there are more options for you to score points just within your own slice. You've got the planet exploration. You've got obviously the agents that allow you to essentially do things that can help you score those points. There are more options for you to do, which means you don't need to kind of deal with your opponents as much. That's not to say that you won't or you can't, especially if you're playing a faction that requires you to sort of either fight, or if you're like the Mentak and you gotta deal with people. But with POK there are more options. Interestingly enough, when I look back at the Prophecy of Kings book, the Learn to Play, it does mention in there in the first paragraph that because POK gives more options for victory, that it's recommended that you play a 14-point game when you play Prophecy of Kings.
Wow, interesting.
And I read that and I said, wow, like they thought about that because so this is one of the things that I came away was realizing that a 10-point POK game is actually going to be short. It's why we've been able to finish some of our games, because some people can just play in their slice, score their points, and score points quickly, especially when you trade, swap supports and stuff. You find that POK gives you more avenues to win without having to sort of really, really kind of bloody your opponent. This vanilla game that we played, what Chris failed to mention it was the most space combat-y, bloody game that I've ever played, and that's what made it so fun. Is that we had to fight each other. There was just no options. It was the objectives came out, and it was like, well, I can't do that in my slice. I'm gonna have to reach over to my opponent's slice and grab some stuff they're not gonna like.
Or even to prevent, I think where vanilla really shined was to prevent people from getting points.
Yes.
We had to take home systems.
Yes.
And that was the avenue, that once Mo started winning, once Kia took Mechatol from me, there was really no other option. You didn't have all these little I'm gonna move your home system or nuke you.
It was just we're enemies. I mean, there was a clear point at one point. I said, "Well, Chris, I guess we are not friends this game for sure."
Absolutely.
And then Chris, of course, decided, okay, that Tim's gonna be my ally, and they literally just formed practically an alliance right before our very eyes, and they started both beating up on me.
Right.
Kia was like, "I'm gonna play my own game until you decided to invade her home system," at which point she said, well, I guess it's 2v2.
Yes.
It was a lot of fun. It was very thematic, if you will. But it definitely required, we had to fight each other.
Yeah.
We couldn't play a piece.
And I think where that also came down was the last, or your final turns with vanilla, is you have fewer options, but those options really smash into each other. Yeah. Whereas I do recall one of the previous games we played recently where Jonathan was... he wasn't Nazroka, was he? I forgot who he was, but he needed basically one more point to win during the action phase.
Oh, that's right. And he was looking into the. I think he
Yes.
was the Nazroka because he was searching frantically the deck, or maybe he wasn't. But he was trying to basically use the planet exploration to score a point.
Yeah. He was,
to win the game.
and that was his avenue to victory.
Yeah.
And he literally was just going around to different planets, just trying to explore.
He knew it was his best option. Yeah.
And as we were saying, it was very removed from interacting with
the
other players. We were just like, oh, maybe you'll get it, maybe you won't.
Yeah.
Go for it. Whereas, the game we played, the most recent game we played,
the
only way to
had
win.
to interact, and so much so that Chris, seeing that he himself probably couldn't win based on his points, he did a Kingmaker play, and the most classic textbook Kingmaker play ever. He just said, "Well, Tim, I am going to help you win this game."
So it's my turn, right?
Yeah.
But this is gonna be funny.
I mean, you do have a lot of and you could dimensional displace Mo into oblivion. And I will let you win, Tim. I will give you the game.
How will you give me the game?
And it was hard to
Yeah.
I tried my best. I tried everything. I pulled out all the stops. And I just couldn't do it because Chris basically was like, I'm going to, Tim, you have the best chance of winning. And he would turn to me like, I don't care what happens.
Yes.
I just don't want either of you two to win.
Yes.
And Kia and I turned on like, Kia, I don't care whether you win or I win. I just don't want either one of them to win. And so it was just a very, very
and
fun
I gave Tim
game.
like a bunch of trade goods and said build a fleet. And
Yeah,
go after it.
Yeah.
And at that point, and it's funny, there was a point where I got to 5 points and I looked at it and I said I can either try to slog it out and try to earn every point and really go for it, or I can just spend trade goods building plastic and putting out fighters and just hitting people hard. And I was like, you know what? I'm not gonna. Let's just go with the fun stuff.
And so they allied, straight up allied, and it was a very like us versus them.
Yeah.
It leaves me to wonder if we had POK with those alliances and being able to use those extra agents and the abilities of the other. It leaves me to wonder if maybe we would have had more arrows in our quiver to deal with things. Of course, you would have had the same thing, but there is an aspect of POK where because there's more stuff to do, there's more of where you can pull from your opponent. You can basically say, some alliances really help you out because their agent is super useful for what you're trying to do.
I don't. You probably could have had a similar game with Prophecy of Kings. It's just I think vanilla made it so much more focused.
Yeah, it was
that it. And I will say, again, the part of this is both of us went into this game expecting to just have a pretty mediocre time, and let's get this over with and go back to Prophecy of Kings. And that was the complete opposite. Like, we both had probably one of the most fun games we've had in a while.
It's phenomenal. It was so fun.
And I think that was really the takeaway.
Yeah.
I will say I'm still on board with Prophecy of Kings.
Despite the fact that we're playing another vanilla
we
game.
are playing another, but I would rather.
We'd rather play Prophecy.
One of the things, and again, I know we're not going to solve it within this podcast, and we'll probably revisit this discussion.
I might have a solution. So I'm glad to hear your thoughts on this, Chris, because I also like POK.
Yeah.
But I have a slightly different opinion about this, and I'm glad we didn't share this with each other at all. We figured we'd just run with it here. And so we've kind of kept our thoughts to ourselves up until now. But I knew Chris still likes POK more. I actually feel like there's room for both vanilla and POK. I would love to just get a Quinn style, whiteboard and show. You know what? Should we do that? What do you think?
Okay, let's do it. Go for it. Where'd he go? Whoa, come back. Come back.
All right. So, on the one hand, we have vanilla, and we have Prophecy of Kings. What are you looking to do? Let's figure out the pros and cons, okay? Are you looking to play more of the board and kind of less of the players? Well, Prophecy of Kings gives you a lot more options to do that. Are you looking for more strategy and have less swinginess to the game? Well, vanilla makes that choice very clear. There's definitely there. If you like the mechs, though, and you love the heroes and the agents and the commanders, and you like planet exploration and all that theme just dripping out of your game, then you're definitely going to want to play Prophecy of Kings. But if you're playing with a whole bunch of newbies, all that extra stuff can sometimes just be a little overwhelming for new players, and it tends to take away from their ability to really enjoy the game, and it's more just information overload. So if you're playing with newbies, vanilla wins. But if you have been playing TI4 for a while, and you like the idea of having new factions and a new meta and a new way to play the game, absolutely you're going to want to play Prophecy of Kings. But TI is a long game. And if you're trying to play a shorter game, the best way to play a shorter game is to make it so that people can score more objectives. Well, scoring more objectives means playing Prophecy of Kings. Are you Matt Lees? If you're Matt Lees, it's going to be vanilla for you. I don't know. Looks like Prophecy of Kings might win this one. All right. So here's the deal. In my opinion, I think that vanilla works in certain situations and POK works in others. If you are going to play a short game, a short 10-point game, it's probably better to have Prophecy of Kings because it allows you to score points quicker, faster, so the game can end quicker. I do think that if you are the kind of person that wants to play more of the people and less of the board, that vanilla does give you that more. It does, because there are less things that you can do on your own. Not to say that those things aren't cool, they are. But in that case, vanilla does allow you to sort of really have to just interact with your opponents. Now, that being said, I love the lore of Prophecy, of TI4 and of Prophecy of Kings, and Prophecy of Kings does give you it gives you more theme, more content. You know, the commanders of these factions are in some cases the actual, the
Agents
featured,
yes.
Caricatures on the box, right? So if you like the theme and you like the lore and you like to have to delve more into that, I do believe that POK is a lot of fun, and it does give you a lot more stuff to do, and it's just dripping with theme. So, and of course the mechs. So in that case, POK. I think if you're gonna play with new players, I think vanilla is better.
Possibly.
And it's hard because POK does allow you to play in your slice, but it's just so confusing.
I do agree that from a more streamlined position, that introducing people to vanilla is easier. Obviously, there's less stuff to think about and track and monitor, and what's this exploration, and I'm getting cards of. One thing we did not talk about is that it actually, I love exploration, but having to draw extra cards each turn, it made it flow a little. It actually did make it flow a little faster.
Without that.
Yes.
That's right. And we thought it was so Chris, your hypothesis was that the early game was actually going to be a little bit slower because of the fact that, those exploration cards actually give you benefits and they let you kind of ramp up quicker, which I believe in the long run works, but in the short run, the rounds do move quicker when you don't have these little explorations. So everybody just goes, I'm moving to this system, taking these 2 planets. All right, your turn.
Yeah.
Done. So it definitely did move. It was just more speedy, more streamlined. That just seems to be the case. One more thing I do want to touch upon, Chris, if you'll allow me, which is to talk about the type of expansion that Prophecy of Kings is, which is that it's not modular. I really wanted to talk about that because I know that there were, I think if it were up to Matt of Shut Up and Sit Down, he would have had it to not be an expansion that built, that you have to incorporate into the game, that you can play. Maybe I don't know. But that being said, I do actually love the fact that they didn't make it modular.
Yeah.
I would because I have a lot of board games where you can play the main game or the expansion, but not or the expansion on top. But it's basically like you play this, not this. With Prophecy of Kings, it really just builds on the game. It is the new meta, right? It's kind of like if anybody of our viewers has played video games, I make a comparison to a game like StarCraft, where an expansion came out, Brood War, or StarCraft 2, and the expansion basically added new units, and those new units now are the new meta. You have to work with them. I like that. The game evolved, and now you play that new meta, and it's more enjoyable. There's no question about whether to play the expansion or whatever. Now, I know we're making this whole weird thing about going back to playing vanilla, and decoupling POK and stuff like that. Generally, that's not how it was meant to be, and I think that was a great decision on the part of the developers, and I appreciate that they did that. What do you think about that, Chris?
No, I absolutely agree. The only final point I would have for Prophecy of Kings is that I do think it fills a lot of holes that vanilla did have.
Like what?
The Winnu, for example. It rebalances things out. It's not perfect. I still, to this day, wish the Sardak were buffed a lot more, because I really love them as a faction in theory, but every time I play them, I'm just disappointed with them. That being said, it made, I think, almost every faction playable.
Yeah.
Whereas in vanilla, we played with probably the best factions there were, and they all played really well. Yeah. But I do think that there are a good, I don't want to say a number, but a good, not half, but about 30% of the factions in vanilla which just aren't as fun. It's just not fun to play. Like, you can't play Winnu in the base game. You're
Some people do. We have people who like to play Winnu. Todd plays Winnu a lot.
Yeah, but he doesn't. I mean, nobody wins with them. Whereas, I do think
Isn't it kind of ironic that they're called the Winnu?
I know.
But
now in the new game, they are the Winnu.
Yeah.
But I think with Prophecy of Kings, almost every faction has a strategy, has a good balance to it. So that's my real defense of Prophecy of Kings, is that I do think it makes the game overall better. But I will conclude and just say that I did come away with a much better appreciation for vanilla. I'm still going to say, let's play Prophecy of Kings.
Yeah. I agree. I'm with you, Chris. I would want to play Prophecy of Kings. Even that upcoming game we have, that's a vanilla game, I would rather play Prophecy of Kings. Now, that being said, what do you do if you want to just try vanilla and play? Do you get vanilla friends? Like Tim, who are just like, whenever you want to play, you go over to their house. Or
no comment. You play Prophecy of Kings and you'll love it. That's what I would say.
That sounds good. I actually, because I'm hosting, I figured, okay, well, I need to get this to be vanilla. I'm not going to buy a new game. I actually worked out a system for how to quickly decouple the Prophecy of Kings from vanilla. Not that I want to do that all that often. But it involved basically taking the all of the agendas that were supposed to be taken out and adding a little tiny sticker at the bottom. Oh. So that way they're easier to check and see. Okay, this is another one taken out, like the Crown of Infidia.
Leave that one in
now. All the planet exploration cards and the space exploration. Those you just don't have to play with. You just leave those out. Now that leaves the action cards and the objectives, right? Well, the action cards and the objectives are all marked with Prophecy of Kings. The only ones that aren't marked, obviously, are the ones that the agendas that need to be removed. Everything else is marked. So when you mark them, all you do is, you can just quickly take them out. And everybody, at the end of a game, we always kind of check the cards So it's actually really not that hard to do that back and forth. Not that I want to, but it's not that hard, especially once you figure out that whole the laws and directives part. And then other than that, like you've heard a lot before, keeping the two colors is great. Everybody wants to be able to keep the two colors. Obviously, the mechs and the agents and stuff, that all comes out. You don't use them. But that being said, I think it's got to be an all or nothing deal. I don't think that there really is a way for you to take some parts of POK and leave some other parts out. So it's all or nothing, but I think that there is some merit to playing the vanilla game, but we love POK more. That is my conclusion. So what do you think about this upcoming game? We might as well segue into it. Are we doing anything for our next podcast? Maybe we should do something about Kingmaker plays?
Yeah, I think in the same theme, I think the next podcast is going to be tentatively good versus evil.
Oh, I like that. So who are you playing then?
I think I'm going to play Necro, but I really, really do want to get into, good being a good person in the game versus, taking home worlds, being aggressive, being in your face, and kind of all the aspects that come with that.
So certain races, factions seem to lean towards being good or bad based on what their abilities, the backstory.
Right.
What do you think?
Right, absolutely. The lore, how they play, how you approach the game. I think there's a lot of different nuances we could work out with that.
Well, I'm going to be playing my old-time favorites, the L1Z1X, the Lizics. I love them, but they are decidedly an evil faction, I suppose, because, I mean, come on, Harrow, like that they're just meant to take systems. What are you supposed to do with that peacefully, right? I've played other factions peacefully. I don't know if this will be a peaceful one, so if you want to space risk with me, that might
we'll see how it goes.
Just happen, Chris.
So perfect. Well, thanks guys for tuning in. We really, really appreciate it.
Yep.
We'll be back in a short while with our next game and our next discussion.
That's right. And, we do have a channel now. We're hoping you guys love these videos. So please check us out, like, subscribe to our channel as we add more. If you are looking to learn how to play Prophecy of Kings or the original game, RTFM has great videos on those. I always recommend Shay Parker's videos to because he teaches the game really well. And of course, you guys heard me say it a lot. The Shut Up and Sit Down videos about TI4 and POK are great as well, so check them out. But yeah, like and subscribe. We look forward to our next episode.
Perfect. Thanks, guys. See you later.
All right. Bye-bye.